At least part of the Trump travel ban is going into effect, and a final decision will come this fall. The Supreme Court agreed today to hear the case in its next session, and the justices issued an unsigned opinion allowing the ban to begin, except in the case of, quote, foreign nationals who have a credible claim of a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. You'll remember Donald Trump issued a revised order back in March that will impose a 90-day ban on travelers from 6 mostly Muslim countries. The ban also suspended the nation's refugee program for 120 days, but that was blocked by 2 different federal appeals courts. Today's decision is the first win for Trump in a legal saga that's lasted the better part of his young presidency. Joining me to discuss this and more, Cambridge City Councilor Nadeem Mazen and State Representative Jeff Deal, a Republican who's weighing a run against incumbent Democratic U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. Good to see you, Representative and City Councilor. I know there are exceptions to the ruling. This is a big win for Donald Trump, is it not, Nadeem?
Well, it sounds like to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds to me like they just took the case. And when you take the case, there's certain things you have to do. And they had to look, is there irreparable harm that they need to make a judgment around? And frankly, the decision to make the case, to take the case in the fall, and the idea to uphold only a partial ban seems, to many, especially those with relations in the U.S., that it could be a partial win, not a partial loss.
If it turns out that the Supreme Court, and I am a lawyer, but not much of one,
okay,
if the Supreme Court of the United States was buying what the appellate courts were selling, that this is a Muslim ban, not a travel ban, they're going to say, well, it may be unconstitutionally discriminatory, but we're going to allow part of it to go into effect until October?
I think the choice they have to make, and you can correct me as a lawyer if I'm
not
wrong,
going to correct you.
It is not whether or not it's constitutional. I think the choice they have to make is once they take the case, is there irreparable harm? They're talking about death, largely to American citizens, that would result from upholding or not upholding the ban. That means they haven't made a judgment, and that means we have to really wait till the fall to see whether there's a victory of any kind. Probably not.
You're buying the optimism or no?
I think a reasonable accommodation was found with the courts today, and I think the other thing, too, is a ban like this would have allowed us, in the past with the Tsarnaev brothers, to have done a better job vetting people coming in from another country who were claiming refugee status but were then flying back and forth to their country of origin. And so I think this is a step towards what I think will be an ultimate win when they take up the case fully.
But, Representative, when I'm reading about this today, what I return to, which is almost every time I think about the travel ban or the Muslim ban, whatever you want to call it, is what's the point? I mean, since 9/11, unless I'm wrong, I'm sure one of you correct me, every jihadist who has conducted a lethal attack, I think every single one, was either a citizen or U.S. resident. So what is it that we are trying to stop that we have not been pretty successful at stopping to begin with to cause all this uproar and division?
Well, I think there could be jihadi training that goes on for people coming into our country to radicalize Americans that are here. But the other thing, too, is we've seen a significant drop in people coming from those state sponsors even before today's decision. So I think in some ways this has been working.
Can I just interject there to say this is not the predominant cause of violence in the United States of America, right? We need to be anti-KKK, we need to be anti-jihadi and anti-anyone else who's violent. But this fixation and hyper-securitization talk, as you said earlier, is a distraction from the major issues America has to go through. Of course, Donald Trump is trying to score political points with this issue over and over and over again. And of course, he'll be defeated by SCOTUS come the fall. But this idea that this is anything other than a charade for him to pick up political points and chalk up maybe one small victory on the way to a loss is obviously that is the case, and anything else to the contrary.
You work with a lot of people in the Muslim community. You're still the highest-ranking Muslim elected official in Massachusetts?
The state, I think I am.
I think you are. I don't know if you had a chance today. What's the reaction of the average Muslim American with whom you've spoken?
Honestly, American Muslims just want to retake the narrative, which is about 4 million people leading in this country, participating in the communities, and not engaging in or supporting violence of any kind. To see something like this is obviously frustrating as a short-term wait, but people will trust and do trust the Constitution. So American Muslims are waiting for the fall when they will be vindicated by the Supreme Court.
Or not. I mean, they weren't vindicated today. The one time I ever interviewed Donald Trump, right before the New Hampshire primary, one of the questions I asked him was, what do you say to a little Muslim kid who hears in his house or on television that you want to ban Muslims? Does that concern you? And he said, yes, it does worry me. What's the message that is sent today, even if it turns out it's perfectly constitutional, to this young Muslim kid growing up in the United States as American as your kids?
It's concerning, and I think I'm glad that he appreciated what you were asking him. But the other thing, too, is what do you say to the young American families who've lost, young children maimed at the marathon bombing?
Nobody from one of these countries who came in on a visa has killed anybody in a terrorist attack here. I mean, that's what you say to them, isn't it? Isn't the goal in government to have a solution in search of a problem?
I think we're looking beyond just what the initial goal was to temporarily put a travel ban to do a better job of vetting from other countries. That's all this is about.
Can we switch gears to the latest vis-a-vis Russia? Obama knew in August.
The ultimate charade going on to try to distract people, by the way.
Well, we'll get to you in a second. Obama knew in August that not only was there Russian involvement, but that Vladimir Putin was atop this thing. Here's what an unnamed high-ranking official told the Washington Post. It's the hardest thing, who worked for Obama, it's the hardest thing in my entire time in government to defend. I feel like we sort of choked. Do you agree?
Well, I think so. It shows that it wasn't a charade. Russia is up in our government, compromising our voting and compromising our electoral process. And then to say, for Trump to distract from his own obstruction of justice and collusion by just throwing the term around and saying Obama's done the same, not true. Obama should have said something, but it was to his detriment. Obama thought, if I say something, people will think it was politically motivated. On the contrary, he should have said something because it was not politically motivated. And we deserve to know.
When Hillary Clinton rattles off this list of people and entities, I lost because of Vladimir Putin, James Comey, and I forget what the third thing is. Should she add Barack Obama? I'm serious about this. Should she add Barack Obama?
I think the political party and Hillary Clinton, we should all be introspective about why we lost. We should blame ourselves. And this hubris, this idea that we thought we must win so we don't want to talk about anything, I think is one of those reasons.
What's your reaction to this non-disclosure from August?
Well, I mean, it just continues to feed into this ridiculous narrative that Donald Trump was colluding with Russians, and now we find out that Obama, didn't take any action when there was actual evidence going on when, under his presidency.
How does this at all affect whether or not the Trump people colluded with the Russians?
I don't think it affects it at all.
You just said it undercuts the...
I think what it shows is that, this has been, the Russian thing is nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's been something that preceded the election. Obama said there was no involvement. Sorry?
Donald Trump was running that. And by the way, this whole notion that August was this major moment where we were kept in the dark, it was, I'm 99, in fact, I am sure, it was in late July that Donald Trump came up with a line when at some forum they were talking about the Russian hacking of the DNC. He said something like, well, let the Russians go hack Hillary's emails. So it isn't like the public was not aware that even Donald Trump admitted for a minute that there was Russian hacking.
Tongue-in-cheek to hack.
No, forget the Hillary Clinton part. I mean, but he was acknowledging, as was almost all of America, that there was hacking. So what did Obama not tell us?
So it goes to show that, evidently it wasn't important to Obama then. Now, for some reason, the entire Democrat Party is mobilized after the election to try to say that Donald Trump and Putin have some sort of collusion going on, when even Comey, the FBI director, even senators on the committee have admitted, Democrat senators have admitted there was no collusion.
So far,
ultimately,
they're not done.
The President of the United States of America is credibly, not uncredibly, credibly accused of collusion and obstruction of justice. And the obstruction of justice, President Trump.
Who was not under investigation, evidently.
And the obstruction of justice claim is not only credible, it's pretty clear to the average observer because you can read his tweets. How in the world are we now talking about Obama, and how are you saying that there is no case?
Before we leave this, can we
there never was a case.
Until this tweet that came out from Trump the other day, this morning, I guess, when he acknowledged that it was Obama's thing. He knew about the Russian meddling, and so he's finally admitting. Are you not embarrassed that essentially the only, and you were the campaign chair for this guy in Massachusetts, virtually the only elected official who's upright in this country who didn't acknowledge Russian hacking until this tweet this morning is the President of the United States? The whole intelligence community, virtually every Republican in Congress, with the exception of the President. Is that not troubling? Shouldn't it be troubling to the American people?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. You're asking, is it troubling that
he was the only person until his tweet this morning who doubted at all, refused to say, yes, the Russians hacked the election?
I think Donald Trump has always said that, of course we recognize there was Russian ambassadors that have been talking to folks like Jeff Sessions. They keep trying to make a case that there was movement beyond just interaction, regular interaction in Washington, D.C. with Russian, officials here, and then trying to make a case that he was colluding. And yet the FBI never said there was any evidence of collusion by Donald Trump. So
well, they're still investigating, I assume you know.
They're going to always be investigating until Mike Pence is done with his second term.
When are you announcing if you're running or not against Elizabeth Warren?
Should be soon.
What's soon mean?
Soon?
The summer?
People should go to dealforsenate.com to find out.
Fine, soon. Nice to see you. I'm only not shaking your hand because I'm not totally 100% well. Nice to see you, Nadine Mazen and Jeff Deal. I appreciate your time.